Welcome to the Openhearted podcast. Hello and welcome to the last episode of the Open-Hearted podcast for the year. My name's Will Wheeler and I'm joined with my main man, Photon John. How's it going, brother?
It's going very good. How are you, my friend?
Oh, yeah, can't complain. Last for the year, man. Like, what the hell, man?
14 episodes.
14 episodes, man.
It's a good round number.
It is. I'm glad we didn't finish on 13. To tell you the truth, man.
I'm not good with
I think I would have said, come on, dude, I think we can do one more, eh?
Yeah.
So it was actually good to get, this last one done for the year. We've put in a lot of effort. We've spoken with some really cool people. So I think it's fitting that we have like a bit of a recap for the year and talk about some of the people that we've had on, some of the topics that we've spoken about, and more than anything, just reminisce on those good times. What do you reckon, my man?
I reckon that's a good way to do it.
Nice. Finishing up for the year. What do you got planned for the year, mate?
Oh man, I think this time of year, every week just kind of blurs into the next one. It just gets more intense,
man.
But I'm having 3 consecutive weeks off everything for the first time in like 7 years. So
yeah, well, you know what, right? The cool thing for us, I think, is that probably the last 3 years we had some financial. When you're an entrepreneur and you're building a business, you financially you struggle. You know what I mean? And we're at a point now, and then getting hit with COVID and all that type of stuff. A lot of the time around Christmas time, we just have never had much money. But this year we've got a little bit to just, relax and I suppose just enjoy our time with each other. I mean, with my wife, of course. I mean, with you, yeah. But you know what I mean? It's just such a relief. But the thing is, and I was only saying to my wife the other day, I'm actually really looking forward to just having a break and just because I don't know, it's been a pretty busy year. And for me, I honestly think it's going to get even busier next year, especially with Neurodiversity Academy, which has some pretty cool stuff coming up. But more than anything, if you're listening today, please subscribe, like, and follow all of our social media platforms. You can see that up in the top right-hand corner there. If you can follow and like them, comment, it makes it so much easier for us. Plus, it makes it really good to get the messages out that we're trying to really get out there. So we've got one person who's already come through today. Sophia, thank you so much for commenting. You're looking great there with your photo, Sophia. Awesome stuff. Will there be party hats, streamers, and biodegradable confetti? I don't know, but that is a very good point there. Something to look at. If not, we'll bring it on 2023. What do you reckon, Photon John?
I reckon there's beers at least.
Beers at least. Cool. Anyway, man, let's get stuck into this, So what we're going to do today, we're actually going to go through and discuss pretty much every topic that we've gone through for the year. We may not get through all of them, but as long as we can have a really cool chat and just speak about some stuff, maybe even take some questions from the audience if they're there listening, would be really cool to listen. Thank you so much, whoever wrote that through. That's just come in through as LinkedIn user. Good to see you both. It is awesome to see you as well. Well, actually, we can't see you, but we can see your post. So that's the main thing there. But let's get stuck into this. So our very first episode, when we went through, had no idea what we were doing. It was very interesting. I don't even know if we had like the music that we have at the beginning back then.
I think we did.
Did we? I thought we had some other thing.
Well, we had I remember we had a conversation about it and went through a few different songs.
Interesting. But anyway, the first one we had was how we thrive with neurodiversity at work. You know, so I might throw this one at you, Kev. Well, what were your thoughts about this one? You know, when we were speaking about this, you know, it's definitely a huge topic. What's that mean to you?
Well, it's an interesting one to throw at me right now, because end of the year fatigue, trying to wrap the business up, trying to get paid before everyone goes on holidays and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Save money. But I've actually had a really I'm out the other side now and feeling good, but I've had a really rough last 4 weeks, I would say, just with mental health and just a bit of fatigue with the autism and trying to run a business and playing many gigs with the band and just lots of socializing, and I have no choice. So yeah, burnt out a little, but got back to it. I would say the biggest thing I've learned is, and when you're suffering from burnout or anxiety or depression, the smallest thing can seem like a Herculean task. But a good friend Lutzer advised me once, just give it a go, right? One morning when you're feeling like you just can't do the thing, just do the thing and just see what happens. And and it sounds really simple, but it was a weird thing for me because I kind of almost didn't cure my anxiety, but I found that I guess it showed me enough, at least, that it really is in my head. And if I just get out of bed and go and do the thing and get it done, I get that sense of achievement, and then I stay productive. So I think I've learned how to stay productive even when I am having.
And it's actually a really good point because I've been struggling with my mental health the last couple of weeks as well. I'm probably on the back end of that now. That first thing of a morning, trying to get out of bed can be so difficult. So forcing yourself to do that, I feel that, and at the time you don't want to.
Yeah.
But once you sort of put yourself through that, it's not a cure, but it really can help make you sort of really, I suppose, work on whatever that is type of thing. But you know what, right? Like today I was actually speaking to a gentleman just through LinkedIn, and he's talking about how the company he's working for is going to be looking at, what's that noise?
That's
you got an ambulance outside. Okay.
I think it's fire trucks. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I thought maybe that was a bit of a sound effect or something. You know what I mean? But yeah, what he was saying was that they're looking at a disability recruitment type of thing next year, sorry. And I'm just like, what's the environment like? And and he was just oblivious. And I think to myself, if these people, if we're going to help these people get jobs, and a big thing, especially with Neurodiversity Academy, that's one of our big goals, is to be able to get people jobs, and for those people to really thrive in those jobs and stay there. And I think the thing is, for us to thrive at work, we really need to have this big understanding of who we are, how we best work, maybe what some of our weaknesses are, and what support there is to really help us to be able to thrive and do really great things. But also too, it's not all about us. Be able to contribute back to these organizations who are employing us, because at the end of the day, we really, That's what it's all about.
We-
An employer doesn't employ you just so you can have a job. They've got a goal as well.
Well, we bring very unique sets of skills to the table. The way with the reason that we can sometimes struggle with certain things is the reason we excel at others. And it can be good to have a different thinker at the table when you're trying to make decisions and get stuff done. So that can work. And but you got to be kind to yourself as well. I don't want to sort of say, oh, I don't want to be some sort of motivational guy. So just do the thing.
Totally.
It's hard, but I have at least found that when I feel like I just cannot force myself to open my computer and do some work, I've just been doing it more often, and everything goes away. And sometimes it doesn't work, but it I guess just it's taught me that it's not as serious and world-ending if I walk out the front door today. Sometimes.
Well, yeah, and I think the thing is as well, I still think it is important that if you are having a down day or whatever, is to, and this is my personal opinion, is to communicate that with, the people around you, if that's your manager or something like that.
Absolutely.
And, to really take that time to focus on getting better. I'm not saying, hey, go out there and push yourself and, really risk doing more damage. Sometimes being able to communicate that can help because it is hard. It definitely is hard. But speaking about mental health, I think a cool thing was we had Dan and Megan come on our second episode there, and we're talking a lot about supporting mental health in the arts. And I think a cool thing with us was that you and I both come from the arts. We know firsthand the ups and downs of what the arts can bring and how beautiful the arts can be as well. So interested to hear what your thoughts were on that type of stuff and, pushing forward with that.
I was talking about exposure therapy. I'm very similar with singing because, especially in the beginning of being in bands and stuff, I was just absolutely mortified of the idea of getting on a stage in front of people. But I learned early on, I was like, okay, well, in that case, I'm going to jump in the crowd and really get amongst it. And it's that sort of exposure therapy. Then at that point, it's sort of too overwhelming to care about, if you know what I mean. But yeah, with regards to mental health in the arts, generally, I find the younger generations are just so kind to each other and others and accepting. And, there's a level of understanding, or at the very least taking seriously mental health that I certainly didn't see growing up, in my generation or when I was their age. So that's quite encouraging, I think, in the future mental health.
Do you know what, right? In regards to the arts and all that, I actually read an article the other day that, say, the music industry, okay, so bands, rock bands, or whatever band you want to, any band really out there or any group, that back in, say, like the 90s and early 2000s and all that, you had what we might call the true rock stars, where drugs, alcohol was a very common thing within that industry. But now what we're actually seeing, to become a very successful musician, for example, you can't be that. You've got to be focused. You're going to be, your schedule, for example, is huge. Let's take someone like Taylor Swift, for example, right? Not that I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan, but someone like her, she would have to wake up, probably do like the gym and all that type of stuff, have certain meals planned, because it's a business, it's a brand. Do you know what I mean? Where, say, back in the days of like Jimi Hendrix or even Kurt Cobain and all of those people, it would have been like, wake up, have a hit of cocaine or heroin or whatever that was.
Yeah.
So the thing, it's sort of changing a bit.
Yeah. My band's hardly famous, maybe in a little bit of Brisbane, but we're the bands that started at the same time as us that sort of imploded or haven't quite, they've stalled and whatnot. And it is that it's because we're very hardworking, and we like beer, but we take it seriously and we view it as a business, and we work really, really hard at it. And it just pays off. But I think that old trope of the sort of sleazy rock star, it was pretty toxic to begin with, and I'm kind of glad it's on its way out.
But do you know what, right? Sports used to be like that as well.
Yeah.
If you take like tennis players back in the day, they would be like, having lines of cocaine and all that, then going out and winning Wimbledon, or being even high while they're winning Wimbledon. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It was very common.
Like the famous story of Andre the Giant downing, was it 36 shots of vodka in like half an hour?
Man. Man. But that dude was so big that he would need to have that much just to be able to feel something.
Yeah.
Which was crazy, you know what I mean? But neurodiversity in adult education. Do you want me to take this one, Kev? Because I seem
I will. This is more up your alley.
Yeah. So a really cool friend of mine, Larissa Kernbone, is that how you pronounce her last name?
I believe she said it was Kernbone.
Okay, cool. She does a lot of stuff around compliance and education in adult education, I should say, not university, but more the vet sector and all that type of stuff. And obviously that's my forte type of thing. That's my background, all of that type of thing. And I think the biggest thing for me has been, and especially building Neurodiversity Academy, is that, and I was even actually having a conversation with someone on, what day was it? Last Friday, about that. The biggest thing, especially in any education, if it's primary school, high school, whatever that is, we still need to learn how to adapt to people with different learning styles type of thing, and I think this is where we're at now, that, especially with, like, we know Dr. Lutzer Island pretty well. And, a cool thing she always talks about is, building inclusive workplaces, building universal designed workplaces, whatever you want to call it. And it's sort of the same in education, being able to change the, not the curriculum, but the way something can be done, or being able to be presented in a way that a student is able to, I suppose, learn and take in information, plus how they're able to complete certain assessments and stuff like that, So I think a big thing in regards to neurodiversity in adult education, that was a big thing for me. And for me, especially with Neurodiversity Academy, I really feel that, especially in the vet sector, that this is an area that hasn't actually been disrupted in regards to neurodiversity in education. So obviously for myself, that's going to be a big thing in 2023. 2023. That's weird to say. Geez, man, I remember when I was 2000. Damn, I'm getting old. And, so little things like that. But I think a big thing for us next year is that we're going to start implementing some of these programs, and I'm really excited to see how they're going to take off, how people are going to, what's what I'm looking for, adapt to those, and how they're going to feel afterwards. Are they going to feel like they've completed something and they've had a great experience? Because I think the biggest thing with education is, especially in the neurodiversity community, is our experience isn't that fun a lot of the time. It's very difficult. So how are we able to change this to be able to make it more interesting so people are taking in that information a lot better type of thing?
Yeah. I know I didn't think that I liked science until after I left school. And that was sort of when I realized that it was because of the way that it was being taught to me.
Well, what do you mean the way it was being taught?
I needed an in. It's the way that I am with most interests. Is I need an in, something that just sort of sparks my curiosity, and then I'm really interested, and I'll get obsessively interested about it. And really put in work to learn about it. And it was just, the common thing with the school. It was the cookie cutter version of the class. They were more concerned with numbers in tests than actually like sparking scientific curiosity in us, which you would think would be the point of science class, right?
Yeah, totally.
So I struggled with that a lot at school. I mean, I failed music miserably because I was 15. I didn't want to know about Mozart. I wanted to know about Smashing Pumpkins. I wanted to learn how to play guitar. I failed that the whole time. I remember though I wrote a song for an assessment, and because they asked us to do that, and aced it. But I had to get my mum to come up to the school and argue with the teacher because she refused to believe that I wrote it. She was like, "There's no way you wrote that. That's too good." I was like,
"Yeah, wow. Crazy."
So it was just about the angle, right? So I aced the things that when they identified something that I really had a talent in or was interested in, I did great. That's my constant. I've said it on a number of episodes. Thing about education is we need to be identifying kids' strengths and nurturing those, and not trying to force an elephant to climb a tree.
Yeah, and it's so true. I think that and it's funny because I'm doing a presentation to an organization on Thursday, right?
Yeah.
And what was it? And that's right. In that presentation, I talk about how, primary school and high school, it was a nightmare for me. But once I stepped foot into the workforce, that's when really everything started to take shape. I really started to find my feet and all that type of stuff. And I often think to myself, imagine if we can really try and help people to find their feet earlier. Because I think the biggest thing, especially in, say, high school, for example, it's very focused on trying to get you that final mark type of thing. And yeah, I get that if you're going to go to university, right? But you know what? A lot of people I know who went to university, they haven't even used their they're not even using their degrees. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you go.
Well, I just I've had my business for 7 years now, and it was this repeated struggle that I had in workplaces where I'm like, I know how to do this, or even if I don't know how to do it better, I need to do it my way. The whole autism thing. I've just got a different way I need to do this, and it just wasn't allowed because I was being assessed on whether or not I was good, not based on my results, but based on whether or not I was adhering to this list of 10 rules, or you know what I mean. So and I'm the most happy, successful, and financially stable I've ever been doing it that way. I knew I needed to do it that way. So yeah, I think it occurs in adult education as well, and the workplace.
Yeah, and you're actually right, because with that presentation I'm doing on Thursday, I talk about that exactly. I talk about how we're teaching in education needs to be almost the same as what we're doing in the workplace. And what I mean, because in the workplace, you technically are teaching people certain things. Do you know what I mean? Because people need to be trained in certain things. And it's the same thing when we're learning, right? And
Yeah.
in a way, in the workplace, you may have reports to do. In education, you may have assessments to do. So it's similar type of stuff, right? And look, at the end of the day, at a workplace, you sort of are getting graded as well. Because if your work isn't up to standard, you're going to get in trouble for that, you know?
Yeah.
Not technically not in heaps of trouble, but if you keep doing it, you would. But, you know, but the thing is, what I'm trying to get at is that, especially with education, right? If we can find ways to be able to really help these people to have a really great experience, they're going to build more confidence, and then they may want to go on and do extra study or look at other types of things in their career. It's the same in our workplaces. If we can have someone in our workplace there that we can help them to really enjoy the work they're doing, help them to build that confidence and really become that person they want to become, there's no stopping them. But what's happening is people are going to places, and you've even mentioned this, you're not able to work to your strengths or work in the way that best suits you, so you leave. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was job hopping endlessly in my 20s before getting diagnosed, and it all makes sense now looking back and being diagnosed. But because I just, you know, every company has a culture, you know, and they're like, we are this kind of person. I'm like, well, I'm not. And they're like, well, you better be, or you don't have a job. I'm like,
yeah, man. And do you know what, right? I always never fitted in because of that. You know, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. If you need me to do some work, I can do the work that I need to do, right? Yeah. But I'm not going to be the one who kisses the boss's ass. I'm not going to be, you know, I'm not that type of person. Don't get me wrong. I'm not the type of person who wants that either. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll never forget when I used to do forklift assessing, right? And when you're an assessor, so many people want to kiss your ass because they want their license at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And I could see through that stuff big time. So usually when people would do that, I'd make the test even harder for them, mate. You know, not to be a prick or anything. I'm not a person who, look, don't get me wrong, I can build relationships and that, but I just don't feel that a good workplace, you need to be kissing someone's ass to be a good employee.
Yeah.
That's just me personally.
Don't get me wrong, in workplaces, particularly in marketing agencies, I would excel and end up in like senior management and stuff, running teams. And but if that team wasn't, I was lucky in a couple of them, like my first agency, where the guy was just like, well, it's working, so I'm just going to leave them to do it however it needs to be done. And so I was fully in control of that. And I've trained many of the best people in my industry who now have, you know, major management roles at large marketing agencies. But the way that I taught them was I sat down with them and I walked them through the process and I asked them what they thought of each step. So I was like, do you understand that? You know, can you think of a different way you might do this? And I'd be like actively trying to identify their strengths and potentially better ways of doing things that I hadn't thought of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we'd have meetings every week, and I would encourage them to just be themselves and to lean into their strengths. And
do you know
I wouldn't give them work that I knew wouldn't suit them. You know?
Do you know what I love? Right?
Yeah.
I love putting an idea out there and then seeing that idea flourish. I don't like when I put an idea out there and then people say, no, that can't be done. Do you know what I mean? More than anything.
Especially when it can't be done for some stupid red tape kind of reason.
Yeah. Like, especially building this, like, Neurodiversity Academy. Like, I remember I would speak to people and we'd want to do some stuff similar to some other companies. And people are like, oh, you can't do that because they're doing that. I'm like, who cares? I said, I want to do it better than them because I don't think they're doing it good enough. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, you can't like do that. It's just such a you can't do that because that person. I'm like, well, stiff, I'll do it. Anyway, we've got Sophia. Sophia, thank you so much for all your questions there. So let's have a look what Sophia's got for us. Self-advocacy and self-determination is such an important factor. Feeling empowered to ask and empowering the employer to understand the benefits of being able to respond in a pragmatic way. What are your thoughts on that, Kev?
Yeah. There's it's such a simple conversation to have between employer and employee that could benefit the company and the employer and the employee that just no one's having. They're just not.
But, and it's also too, I think what it could come down to is that we're not seeing these neuro-inclusive workplaces yet. I was actually looking at this survey that I did with about 106 people at the beginning or middle of the year or something like that. And what was it? What was it? So 106 people wrote to us filled in the survey. And I think a really high percentage was saying how they don't feel they have a neuro-inclusive workplace. You know what I mean? So when you don't have that, your experience is going to be really bad, and I only had a chat with someone the other day. It's like, it's real little things, like knowing that you can't just send this huge email to someone who's dyslexic. You might be able to send that, but it's probably better to have a phone call and discuss the email. Do you know what I mean? Little things like that.
It's funny. I tend to get my thoughts out in writing on Facebook to do with mental health when I'm struggling a bit or when I have a thought. And I write these really big, detailed posts and break it all down and stuff. And I'm always thinking, this is exactly the kind of post that Will won't read, but this is exactly the post that I want him to read because I want him to see what my thoughts are.
Yeah, totally. But
so I wish I could there was an AI that could just visualize the story for you.
Well, do you know what, right? Like it's funny, right? Because I sometimes go on Reddit a little bit, and the questions that I read the most are the ones with the less writing. And sometimes people may have something that's like, yeah, cool, yeah, and it's like, yeah, that was crap. But then some people are able to compress this huge big thought into something very small. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, I get this. But then there's other people who will just go on this huge tangent. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't read this, and it's not that I can't read it. It's just, I just could not be effed sitting there going through a huge, big, long thing like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Whereas for me, that's the only way I can make sense of things. I have this tangle of thoughts in my head, and I need to stretch them out into a pattern or a concise, way of.
You know what you could do? You could break them into different posts.
Yeah.
So you can have one post with some part, another post with another post with another post with another.
Oh, the LinkedIn user is Nat Phillips Mason. Hi, Nat.
Oh, g'day, Nat. Hopefully she's still on listening.
Yeah.
Cool. So really, we should get on to the next one. We really got depth into that, which was really cool. Yeah. So succeeding in neurodiverse families and parenting.
Well, this is probably the thing I'm the least experienced at.
Well, I'm the exact. But, I think what we could probably relate it to a lot is our own upbringing, more than anything.
My mother's autistic, my sister's autistic, other family members are autistic. My mother was quite young when she had me, and we didn't have a lot of support. And my mum is just like a superhero to me. She just did, and then finding out later that she was facing additional struggles that a normal young mother might not face, just made me, admire her even more, that she got through that. So yeah, I mean, I guess I do have some experience in growing up in a neurodiverse family. Definitely a mix too, because my brother's neurotypical, and
is he neurotypical? Is he?
Yeah.
What? Are you sure he's your brother?
Yeah, I know, right?
Did the stork drop the baby at the wrong house or something?
Well, yeah, it's very strange. Well, it's like, I'm gonna be in trouble for not being able to remember which guest said this, but it's sort of, actually no, it was Heather. It was Ali's sister.
Oh,
Heather.
okay, yep.
The way it's not necessarily genetic, but there are a combination of genetic factors that create the environment for autism. Which means that if you're autistic, you're not necessarily going to have autistic children, but you may. So yeah, Mum had my brother, who was it's not like he wasn't a handful, but he was he was normal in the brain.
He was a bit of a handful back in the day, eh?
Oh yeah. He's a pastor now, but he was.
Yeah, I know. So that's why it's just like so like.
He was a bit of a rap
wow.
Yeah, and I do remember in hindsight, like a lot of situations where, I was like, wow, that autism caused that situation. My relationship with my brother, I would emotionally, I was very confused and.
But did
extreme
you know?
Sometimes.
But you didn't know you were autistic until
no.
Well, did your mom? It probably wasn't until your sister was born, and
so yeah, my sister, we're 20-something years apart, so she was born year 2000, and a few years in, we started to realize she was like lining all of the shoes in the house up in color-coded order and stuff. We're like, oh, we should probably check that out. So then, but as soon as Mum got the diagnosis from my sister and they gave her the literature, she was like, oh my god, this is Kevin.
This is Kevin and me.
Yeah. So it was a neurodiverse family. Like, I never really sort of thought about that until now.
But do you know what, right? Like, obviously I came from a neurodiverse family as well. My father, I'm pretty sure he's dyslexic, and I'm pretty sure my mom, probably has a lot of mental health type of issues. She said she may think she's ADHD, not 100% sure. I'm definitely ADHD and dyslexic.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure my brother's dyslexic. Not sure if he's ADHD. He could be. But I think he might be dyscalculia. Dysgraphia. Whichever one where there's sort of coordination he's a lot better than what he used to be, but he used to struggle with that a lot. So I think the hardest thing was, this day and age, we're able to potentially identify these things quite early in kids and all that. And usually when the kid gets identified, it's the parents start to go, oh, hang on, am I this as well? So it sort of can change the situation. But I think a lot of stuff, especially with our family when we were growing up, we didn't really know about a lot of these things. So it was really difficult to really, I suppose, give us the right support and all that type of stuff. But I suppose, especially when Ali and Grant were on, they were talking a lot about their daughter and, their son, and they're talking about how he's, sorry, I've got a bit of a croaky voice today. I hope I'm not getting sick because I've really got to do some business stuff at the end of this week. But I think the real great thing with them was that they're really supporting their son through that journey, and I think the biggest thing is that, and I don't know if you felt the same, and this isn't nothing against my parents because it wasn't my parents doing anything wrong, but I think the biggest thing, especially when we're going through school and that, people are trying to change who you are. Do you know what I mean? It was sort of like, no, you can't hold a pencil like that. You have to hold it like this. And it's like, yeah, nah, stuff that. I'm not holding the pencil like that because I don't like holding the pencil like that. And don't get me wrong, I can write bloody fine holding the way I hold the pencil. Do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. That's what I was saying before. It's this cookie cutter mentality with schools and workplaces that just it just boggles the mind. I mean, people are so diverse and so different. Even just neurotypical between each other are completely different. You know, so I don't know. I guess it's just that, you know, obedient worker mold that you know people want to force people into. But yeah, it was the same as a kid, and we grew up in a different time. You know, my mom apologizes to me sometimes for not noticing early, and I'm like, well, the diagnosis only sorry, the term, you know, only came about not long before I was born. You know, like you weren't to know. It was just a different time. There was much less education.
Well, that was the thing, right? Like my mom and I were talking about this when I got diagnosed with ADHD this year. And she's like, you know, back in those days, and I'm talking like early 90s, mid 90s, and I suppose the late 90s, because I was in high school then. You know, if you were ADHD, you were someone who was uncontrollable. You'd be throwing your desk and throwing things at people and out of control, where I was definitely a class clown, and I would definitely give it back to the students and everything. Sorry, I'd not give it back. Sorry, I'd give it back to the teachers. But like, only because they didn't like me and I didn't like them back. But, you know, you wouldn't have thought I was someone who needed, you know, I was ADHD. So things have changed now, I think. And I think our whole, you were even saying it before, especially with bands and all that, is this different. So people are more supportive of each other now. You know, it's
younger
so
generations, especially. But God, man, imagine how awesome it would be being raised by Grant and Ellie. Like that, those kids are going to have a great time.
Oh, I don't know, man. My parents are pretty awesome.
My mom's great too, but I think those kids are gonna turn out.
Yeah. Hang on, man. My earpiece was falling out there. You know what? I'm gonna quickly write on my list to Santa. That I want to get a new pair of headphones this Christmas. So I'll write that down.
Exactly. $139. They're amazing.
Well, I had some good ones, right? And my cat bloody ate through the bloody lead.
Oh no, dude!
And screwed them. It's the second set, man. I'm just like, man, bloody hell.
Keep the cat out of the office.
Toad, I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't do that to her. We love her too much. You know what I mean? She's our life.
Do you $139 pair of headphones every couple of months, love her?
Oh, yeah. No comment. No comment. I might have to start buying like the real cheap cat litter, just so a bit of a payback type of thing.
Yeah.
Not that you really know. But anyway, yeah, totally. But moving on as well. So, you know, we had Dr. Eric Enlick, I think his name is that, have I pronounced his name right?
Yeah.
And he did a lot of stuff with helping neurodistinct students to go from school into colleges and universities over in the United States, you know. And this was actually a really interesting talk, I thought, because it was interesting to see some of the people that he was working with and all of this. What was your take on some of the stuff we spoke about in that episode?
It blew my mind, firstly, that we were talking to a guest of that caliber. I was just like, wow, he's the real deal, you know. But I feel like, you know, it was interesting speaking to someone from the other side of the planet who, basically confirmed for me that the stuff we've already spoken about today is true everywhere.
Yeah, totally.
But it sounds like in America, as America does, they're a little ways ahead of us in some stuff, and thinking about things that probably aren't happening over here, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's just a completely different system. You know what I mean? Like it's just so completely different, like I think the college lifestyle, college university, that's what they call it over there. Here it's more university. It's such a different experience to what we have here. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you would like, do we have any campus on? Is there any on-site campuses here in Australia?
Some, but I think it's mostly for overseas students.
Yeah, totally. So, like for starters, there's that. Plus, also,
in Australia in general, I think people just tend to go to the university that's closest to them as well. Everyone's not fighting to get into just a couple.
Totally. Yeah, but sometimes it's more like they're more fighting to get into the universities that are closest to them.
Yeah.
So, for example, up in Brisbane, you'll either go to UQ or QUT, and I've heard that sometimes people put their nose up to people who, like the UQ people put their nose up to the people from QUT, that's just what I've heard. I don't know.
No, I knew a guy, and he literally said this was a guy who worked for me at that agency I was talking about. He went to UQ, and then we brought on a new employee, and he literally said to him, I can't remember what the conversation was exactly, but he was like, "Oh yeah, I went to QUT." He was like, "Oh, okay, I went to a real university."
Oh my god!
I was like, "Stop that!"
But that's the thing, really. At the end of the day, right? Honestly, and look, don't get me wrong. There's some schools that can give you like what's the word I'm looking for? So for example, here in Sydney, right? If you go to certain schools, right, it's almost like a status thing. Do you know what I mean? Where because I've got a mate who went to one of the most prestigious schools here in Sydney, right? But if you saw him now, he's got an afro and he's a cool dude, right? Where a lot of the guys from that school have gone on to, apparently they've had a few prime ministers and all of that type of stuff, right? And I get that, okay? But you know what? Sometimes the school doesn't make the person. The person can actually go out, regardless of any school or no school, and do really well if they've got that drive, ambition, and that whatever it is to really go on and to succeed, if that makes sense. I think you and I are a prime example of that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't finish high school. I'm a 7-year-long business owner who's doing all the marketing work for the marketing agencies, and they're passing it off as their own, and I had no experience in that before. Yeah, it's unfortunately not everyone can be as lucky as I was to find a path like that, when people are trying to force them into the cookie cutter.
Yeah, totally. But you know what, right? But in saying that, and sort of back to the topic, we've sort of got off topic a bit, but I think it's been worthwhile. I think the thing is, in a lot of these universities, we are seeing a lot more support. The only thing that I'm not seeing is that, are we seeing these universities investing in outside people to come and help support these students? So, for example, I remember speaking to a university here in Brisbane. So it's either going to be one of, well, actually, there's 3 universities in Actually, I think there's a few different ones because you've got a few small ones as well.
QT, UQ, Griffith. There's a couple of other ones.
And then I think there's North Queensland University or
North
something.
Queensland, Gold Coast.
Yeah, something like that. But you know what? A big thing that they were talking about, this place what they were talking about, is that I said, look, if I'm dyslexic, you know, what would I go do if I was dyslexic? What support? And they're like, look, what you would do, you'd go to the community support people. Now, those community support people, they're just volunteers, other students who volunteer at the school. And then I'm like, okay. And then they're like, and then what they would do, they'd print you out and send you all these links so you could read up about the support. And I'm like,
so
do you know how stupid that sounds?
So they're not like trained or anything? Or...
No. And that's what I said. I said, so are these people like trained in these areas? Oh, no. That we'd just point them in the right direction type of thing like that. And it's like, that's not good enough. You know what I mean? That's not good enough, you know, especially considering that these universities are pulling in billions of dollars per year. You know what I mean? Not necessarily each university pulls in that much, but the market is $1 billion industry. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
They need to get the money out of unis.
Yeah. Totally. Now, let's I think this one was just you and I with this one. So transitioning into adulthood as a neurodistinct person. What was that like for you, my man?
You know, I can only speak from an autistic point of view, but there are things that don't occur to us that just blows people's minds that it wouldn't occur to you, because it really is I don't want to put a negative connotation on it, but it really is kind of a malfunction in the part of the brain that does the social, hey, that's probably not cool kind of thing, you know, or the translation of what you're seeing into something you can understand. And so for me, a lot of it, but the thing is, you can learn. A lot of people don't realize that we can learn. Over time, I've learned how to navigate a good morning conversation pretty easily. But I'm doing that like I'm playing a song on the piano. I had to learn it. Whereas everyone else, it's no problem. It's just ingrained in them. So there's that. But I think one of the biggest challenges I face in adulthood is squaring myself with when I think back to, you know, things I said to people or did, just embarrassing moments, you know, in my life, and just not recognizing that person, I guess, because I've done so much conscious growing and learning as a person as I've grown up, I've grown older, and managing the cringe factor.
Managing the cringe. You know, I think the hardest thing, and, you know, we did speak about this, but I think for me, it was maturing late.
Yeah.
You know, like I seem to mature a lot later than everyone else, right? And I think that can sometimes be confusing when you're trying to live up to this expectation of what you're supposed to be when you're technically not there yet, if that makes sense. It's like eating like chicken before it's cooked. You know, you're bound to have some problems if you get my drift, right? And you know, so the thing is that was really difficult, but at the time you don't really realize that. You don't really realize that you're not as mature as, and don't get me wrong, we're mature people, or it's not that we were immature. You know, we weren't like sucking on our thumbs and, you know, stuff like that, still wetting our pants and all that once we left school. But like, you could have been, mate. I don't know, mate. No judgment there. But, you know, the thing is that we, it did take us a little bit longer there. you know. So and even for me going into the workforce, man, I was like in my shell. Do you know what I mean? Speaking to a boss was like, oh hey, excuse me. You know, I would be afraid, man. I'd be afraid. So, you know, those little things were really difficult, I think. And I think sometimes when we've got younger people transitioning from school into higher education or even the workforce, pardon me, you know, sometimes we need to just understand that, okay, maybe these people aren't going to be up to the standard that we need them to be right away, because we're still well, totally the thing is, we're still processing a lot of stuff, but it will get there, if that makes sense. But
I'll never forget I'll never forget this one employer I had, or my boss in the company, Ben. I really wanted a job at this company. They did like music video systems for pubs and clubs and stuff. And it was just such a cool company to work for, you know. And I got in, and basically they had me in technical support, right? But I knew nothing about computers. And they kept trying to teach me, and I kept not picking it up. But what he did was he came at it from a bunch of different angles. So he tried this way, it didn't work. Tried that way, it didn't work. And then eventually it was a last ditch thing. He was like, look, I'm being told to fire you. And he was like, I'm just being honest here. I'm going to put you in manufacturing, and you're going to build these machines with your own two hands for the next 2 weeks. And then I reckon you'll come back and you'll be able to do it. And he was right. And I came back, and all of a sudden I was good at the job, you know? So I feel like that's how we have to come at life sometimes. So we'll come at a period in our life, or a problem in our life, or a situation in our life, and we try to come at it like we see everyone else around us doing it, and it doesn't work for us. So we have to try again and again. And then sometimes what that means is the neurotypical people are maybe a bit ahead in the race.
But it's funny you say that, because what I normally found was they're ahead of the race, and I was like behind, and I was still figuring out how to put that puzzle together, right?
Yeah.
But as well with that, I was also breaking down how to do that better and better and better, and get that, be more, I suppose, efficient in that way, that eventually I would then pass everyone else who was ahead of me, and I'd be able to do it in a really smart, different type of way, where I'd still get the same result, but I'd reach my goal quicker. So sometimes it might take longer, but we might be able to get there. You know, there's reasons why.
You figure it out better,
totally. You know, so it's definitely really interesting stuff. But I think the biggest thing, especially when you're maturing quite late, it can be difficult to identify the right people to hang around as well. And I think this was probably, and I think this is something that I always talk about. It's very hard, you know, especially for us, even now, it can be very difficult to try and make friends, right? Especially when you're in school. If you meet someone and they're nice to you, you don't necessarily see the whole other side to them of they're involved with some bad people, or on the weekends they're doing this, or they're just, you know what I mean? So it can be really difficult to see I suppose, the things that can really destroy your life or career or whatever that is, because you're just seeing this other part that is really hard to get from other people sometimes. And what I mean is someone opening their arms and being a friend, where, someone might open their arms and be a friend, but their intentions may not be the best for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in my very early 20s, I had a friend group that I thought were my best friends. And it took me a while, but I started to cotton on after a while. I'm just like, something's not right here. And then it's the same thing I was talking about before, how you don't realize how you never saw it before once you realize. But like, I finally cottoned on. These guys are bullying me to my face, and I just haven't been noticing. That was just such a shock. I remember. I had a weird autistic meltdown that night, like just emotional, complete meltdown in front of all of them, and they were laughing at me. It was sucked, but you grow, you learn, you move on.
But the thing is, right? Like, I think, I've hung out with certain people like that, and I just when you sort of, I think the hardest thing that I found was that I was going, especially when I was involved with a lot of drugs and alcohol, right? I'm not more drugs probably because alcohol's easy accessible. I sort of found that once I'd sort of given up all of that and gotten away from it, I wouldn't hear from people. People wouldn't call me. People wouldn't say, "Hey, Will, I haven't heard from you in a while. Are you okay?" And that was where it was like, and that was where it was really hard to kick certain drugs and all of that, because you're like, the whole social aspect to it was gone. You know what I mean? And that can cause mental health within itself. You know, so it was really difficult to go, okay, well, I'm going to move away from this, but getting away from this means I have to get away from everyone else I know as well. And that's a really hard part within itself. But that was the thing. I realized that now I wasn't doing all this stuff. People wouldn't call me. I remember I was having a huge breakdown. No one called me and said, "Hey, Will, are you okay, man?" And that's where it really kicked in to say, these people aren't even my friends. And I think the hardest thing was a lot of people I did hang out with, the people I knew or thought they were my friends, they were just friends through other friends I knew, and I thought they were complete dickheads. Do you know what I mean? But because they were hanging out with my friend, I thought, okay, well, I need to hang out with them. And after a while, I'm like, why am I hanging out with these people? They're complete idiots. Do you know what I mean? But that's how it rolls, and I think you do. I think with the right support, the right guidance, I think with the right whatever it is, you can get your life on track. And I think this is going to be a great thing for us in 2023. We've been really talking about getting a lot of these social groups started. We're looking at maybe doing some online Uno game nights and stuff like that. We're still looking at the logistics of that. But I think that's going to be really helpful to bring people together and really find their tribe as well. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I'm really looking forward to it. And I've learned so much this year doing this podcast. It's been awesome.
It has been.
I honestly can't believe the caliber of guests who have wanted to come on and talk to us.
Mate, we've only just started, baby. We've only just started, mate. We've only just started, only just lit that candle, mate. We've got some really good stuff coming. But we have some really good people coming in 2023. Before we wrap everything up, does anyone who's listening have any questions for us? The last questions of the year. Hopefully we can not have build up too much anxiety during our Christmas period, and we can come back and hit the ground running in 2023. Doesn't look like we've got too many questions there.
No. And can I just say to Will, before we wrap up,
you really need a break, mate.
Thank you for making me do this.
I do not make you do anything, mate.
You know what I mean.
I don't make you do anything. For encouraging you.
Yes.
Let's use encouraging words. It makes me feel like I I can't grab you by the hair because you don't have too much
Well,
of that.
well, I'm thanking you. It's a positive thing.
Yes, good.
No, but I had a little trepidation about it, but I've had a great time.
But the thing is, mate, like I think we're a team here, and it's without you. Well, get your tissues out now for everyone listening. We're having a little bit of a bro moment here. It's a team effort, and I think, we've spoken about this, that a big reason behind the Open-Hearted podcast is in 2023, we hope to get some things happening with our app, with our dating and friendship app that's happening. So we're really building some interest around that. We really want to help build a real social network of neurodistinct people where we can get together and play games and be friends and make new friends, or even like try to help other people learn more about neurodiversity. Doing some really cool stuff in 2023 is going to be pretty cool. And do you know the best way to find out more information about that, Kev?
Would that be to subscribe, like, and follow us? Yeah,
that's exactly right, my man. That's exactly right. How good was that?
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good, man. Team effort there, man. But you know what? It's been an awesome year. I didn't think we would get 14 episodes done this year. I honestly did not think that. We're probably looking at coming back in about January around the 16th or something like that.
Yeah.
We're not 100% sure on who we will have yet. I'm thinking we might get that American guy. But like,
cool.
do you know the guy I'm talking about?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll sort that out. We'll have another conversation. But anyway, thank you very much for everyone who's listened to us over the year. Look, we really appreciate all the support, all the kind words of encouragement we've gotten through our social media platforms. Everyone who's reached out to us, who's wanted to be on the show, or they've contributed just by commenting on our stuff. Thank you so much. More than anything, I think we really want to hope that everyone has a really safe and have a really great time for the end of year break there. Photon John, is there anything else you want to say before we close up, mate?
Just thank everyone for watching again. It's been just bloody amazing doing this podcast. I've had so much fun. And, I've literally had people come up to me in the street and like thank us for this. So like, it's having an impact, and I'm really...
It's only going to get better, mate. It's only going to get better, mate. Awesome. Thank you so much for listening. My name's Will Wheeler. I'm with my main man, Photon John. This is the Open-Hearted Podcast. Signing off for 2023. Till next time.